of wisdom of Nagarjuna. Mahaprajna Paramitasastra. 8 Yen Lamad. Composed by the Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and translated by the Tripiakat Harmakarya Kumarajava of the land of Kaucha. Under the later Tsin. Translated from the French. By Gelongma Karma Migmi Chodron 2001. Chapter 37, The 10 Concepts. The Bodhisattva-mahasattva should completely fulfill the 10 concepts, namely 1. Impermanence. 2. Suffering. 3. Non-self. 4. The disgusting nature of food. 5. Distaste for the entire world. 6. Death. 7. Impurity. 8. Abandonment. 9. Detachment. 10. Cessation. Sastra. I. The concept of impermanence. Question. Why are all the practices sometimes called knowledges, sometimes recollections, and sometimes concepts? Answer. When one begins to practice the good dharmas so as not to lose them, they are called recollections. When one develops the object and develops the mind, they are called concepts. When one understands precisely without feeling any doubts, they are called knowledges. The concept associated with the wisdom that considers all conditioned dharmas to be impermanent is called the concept of impermanence. All conditioned dharmas are impermanent because they arise and perish incessantly, because they depend on causes and conditions and because they do not entail any accumulation. Furthermore, at the moment of their arising, they come from nowhere and, at the moment of their cessation, do not go anywhere. This is why they are said to be impermanent. Furthermore, they are said to be impermanent because the two kinds of worlds are impermanent. Beings are impermanent and the universe is impermanent. Thus it is said, the great earth and its plants and trees disappear. Mount Sumera crumbles and the ocean dries up, the abodes of the gods are entirely consumed. Is there anything then in the universe that is eternal? The Venerable One with the 10 strengths had physical splendor, the light of his wisdom was immense. He saved all beings. His renown filled the 10 directions. But today when he has been wiped out, where is he? Who is the sage who would not be grieved by it? In the same way, Sariputra, Maudgalyayana, Subhuti and other holy individuals, noble Cakravartin kings, sovereigns of nations, the kings of the ever-happy gods, the deities, saints, great virtuous people, noblemen, they too all perish. The flame and the brilliance of the great fire disappears suddenly and the world is reduced to nothing, like a lamp exposed to the wind, like the tree growing on a dangerous shore, like the filter filled with water that empties immediately. Therefore there is impermanence, because all beings and all the abodes of beings are transitory. Question. Why does the Bodhisattva practice this concept of impermanence? Answer. Because beings who are victim to the mistake of taking what is impermanent to be eternal undergo the mass of suffering and do not succeed in escaping from samsara. The yogin who possesses this concept of impermanence converts beings, saying to them, all dharmas are impermanent. Do not become attached to the notion of eternalism. You will then lose the opportunity to practice the path. The 4 noble truths are the supreme and wondrous teaching of the Buddha. Of these truths, the first is the truth of suffering, and the aspect of impermanence is the first aspect of the truth of suffering. This is why the Bodhisattva practices the notion of impermanence. Question. But there are people who still feel attached to impermanent things when they are present. The king who was attached to his wife because old age would make her ugly. There was a king who had a wonderful wife who had been born from the womb of the earth. In the form of a 10-headed Rakshasa, she was about to cross the great ocean. The king was very sad. A wise minister consoled him. The king is endowed with the power of knowledge and he knows well that the queen will return very soon. Why does he feel sad? The king replied, "What saddens me is not to think that my wife cannot return. I am only afraid that on her return her youth will already have passed." In the same way, seeing beautiful flowers or lovely fruits about to fade, people are even more attached to them. Thus, when one knows that things are impermanent, one develops even more fetters. How can you say that impermanence calls forth disgust and breaks the fetters? Answer. Seeing impermanence in that way is to understand only a small part of it and not to realize it completely. You will be no different than the animals that see impermanence in this way. This is why, here in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Buddha tells Sariputra that the concept of impermanence must be completely perfected. Question. Then what is this perfect concept of impermanence? Answer. It is observing that conditioned dharmas arise and perish from moment to moment like dust blown by the wind, like water rushing down from the mountain, like the flame that is extinguished. Conditioned dharmas are without solidity or vigor. They cannot be grasped or retained. Like magical fabrications, they deceive worldlings. Thanks to this impermanence, the yogin succeeds in breaking through the threshold of emptiness and, since no dharma exists in emptiness, it too is non-existent. How is that? Birth, duration, and destruction do not coexist in one and the same moment. At the moment of birth, duration, and destruction cannot exist. At the moment of duration, birth, and destruction cannot exist. At the moment of destruction, birth, and duration cannot exist. Birth, duration, and destruction are mutually opposed to one another in their characteristics and their nature. They do not exist together. Since they do not exist, neither does impermanence exist. Question. If there is no impermanence, why did the Buddha speak of impermanence in regard to the truth of suffering? Answer. Worldly people who produce wrong views have claimed that the world is eternal. The Buddha spoke of impermanence in order to destroy this eternalistic view and not because he considered impermanence to be real. Furthermore, before the Buddha appeared in the world, ordinary people used only conventional means to remove the disturbing emotions. But today, when it is a question of uprooting the roots of the disturbing emotions, the Buddha speaks of impermanence. Furthermore, heretical systems speak of deliverance when one is only apparently liberated from the 5 objects of enjoyment, but the Buddha has said, it is on account of wrong concepts that one is bound up, and it is by considering the correct concept of impermanence that one is liberated.